And all right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Orick, here with my partner who's back. He's back from the recording studio, and Sean Williams. And I'm reading a message right now. We're going to have to talk about this. Hangouts on Air is going away later this year for quick streaming. Try youtube.com webcam. So we may have to switch formats anyway. That's probably why I'm seeing some of the stuff missing in my box. Sean, I did not know we would have this message, but it just popped up on my screen. How you
Wow.
doing tonight? Yeah, we're gonna have to go to a new format for this show.
We'll have to start laying the groundwork on that as
Yep.
soon as possible. I'm doing great, man. Thank everybody for checking up on me in my absence last week. Thanks to Bob Rose for filling in for me. Had a great time. It was a wonderful experience getting to get back into a recording studio again. We laid down the rhythm tracks on a couple of our original songs. Looking forward to getting them completed and mixed down and everything. I have a lot of fun doing that stuff, and it gets my mind off of life and barbecue. So that's always a good thing.
What is this going to be like a regular album? Is this going to be an online album? What is I gotta ask these questions.
At this point, it's all about getting some single
Women?
songs. Well, yeah, that too. Getting some single songs out there. Probably the next step in the process is going to be at a few of the shows that we do, filming video footage and putting together a video of the songs that we did. So it's exciting. It's awesome to be a part of a creative process like that.
Well, you're going to have to stream this video on either on the show or through our page because we got to see this.
Yeah. I really am trying to get some good footage from one of our shows to share with everybody because everyone's asking me about it. We have a show coming up. Let me see, July the 20th in Columbia, Louisiana. Really looking forward to that one. I saw something today. I don't have my notes. Something that I said we have to talk about, and it was so important that I can't remember what it was. Zero show prep. Remember?
Yep, zero show prep. That's our motto.
That's it. Full speed ahead.
Michael Thomas's contract, or
Exactly.
okay.
And I'm anxious once we get Quinn on to talk to him because he has kind of a unique perspective on this. The report that I saw today said that, and this is a direct quote, I want to say from NFL Update, but they said that the Saints were comfortable with making Michael Thomas the highest paid wide receiver in the league.
Until Julio Jones gets his contract, yes. But
to be honest, I don't think that the Falcons will pay Julio again.
I don't know. The story I saw on Twitter, I believe it was, they are talking about extending him as well, although he's already got 2 years left on his deal. But yes, the Saints are not being bashful about paying him, making him the highest paid receiver in the NFL.
I don't think that they're going to have any choice.
Mm-hmm.
And B, probably even bigger, he's earned it.
Yes, he has.
Very, very rarely when it comes to contract negotiations and throwing mountains of money at these professional athletes, very rarely do I side with the athlete and say they absolutely deserve it. Michael Thomas does.
Well, you weren't here last week to talk about it, but of course they extended Cam Jordan, so he basically retires as a Saint. Um, but yeah, if you look at your core players right now, who are they? Your young core players. I mean, Drew Brees set aside. Your young core players are, Cam Jordan, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Um, some would argue Sheldon Rankins. Um, Teron Armstead when he's healthy. Ryan Ramczyk. Um, that's probably Marshawn Lattimore. We probably could throw him in that mix as well. But these are the guys you're probably going to have to take care of. Then you got the issue with the quarterback. Then you have, what do you spend the money on keeping Teddy Bridgewater, or do you now, because you're going to have to spend the money now on Kamara, Lattimore, Ramczyk eventually, you probably will then want to have a cheaper quarterback, maybe a quarterback you draft in the first round, so you get those 5 years to try and let that rookie contract make up for all the money you're going to spend and keep your veterans who have been producing for you these past couple of years. I do agree. I think Michael Thomas, that's why I have his jersey on today. I do think Michael Thomas deserves his payday. And I do want him to be paid as the best at his position because, quite frankly, based on his statistics, he has been the best at his position. I was impressed with him from the first time I saw him out as a Saint. I told people that he snatched the ball out of the air like a top NFL receiver did. He didn't wait for that ball to come to his hands. He went and got it. And he has shown a willingness to block. He's shown his willingness not to be a diva, a self-centered guy, a guy who stands in the star in the middle of Texas Stadium with the look at me kind of thing. He has been that kind of guy who is, more important is the name in the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey, that stuff, and that's the kind of guy you want to have. He is the kind of leader. He is a diva, but not in the traditional sense of a all about me diva. So yes, I absolutely do. I will pay him.
I think that the biggest key to him earning this has been his consistency. 3 years, 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. I think, isn't it 30 touchdowns?
I don't have the stats in front of me, and I think you're pretty close. Let me see. I'll pull this up real quick because I want to say he is right there with his stats are 23 touchdowns.
23. Close.
Yeah. 3 years though, 321 receptions, almost 4,000 yards receiving, and 23 touchdowns. So,
and you got to remember that he did this in his rookie year, being opposite Brandon Cooks.
And we're looking at as receiving leaders. Well, he's the one that they made that decision to trade Brandon Cooks because of Michael Thomas.
Sure.
You didn't need a Brandon Cooks any longer. Brandon Cooks was nice, but you didn't need him. Yeah, in fact, Michael Thomas this year has just passed our guest when he comes on, Quinn Early, to move to 9th on the all-time receiving list. Brandon Cooks is 12th. Wes Chandler is 13th. But your top 4, Marcus Colson, Eric Martin, Joe Horn, Danny Abramowitz. That's your top 4.
Yeah.
But if he has another season the way, much like the season he had this past year, he should, I want to say either tie or surpass Jeffrey Henderson for no. If he has 1,000 yards, if he gets 1,000 yards receiving, he will pass Jimmy Graham to move to fourth and be right on Danny Abramowitz's butt.
Yeah.
Because he has 37. I was looking at the wrong person. He has 3787, 3,787 yards receiving. Jimmy Graham's got 4,752 yards. So yeah, he will pass if he has 1,000-yard receiving again. He will pass Jimmy Graham and be right behind Danny Abramowitz. Now he is way behind Joe Horn, Eric Martin, and of course Marcus Colston. Marcus Colston's almost at 10,000 yards. He's at 97.59. Eric Martin's at 78.54. Joe Horn's at 76.22. And Abramowitz is at 48.75.
Yeah, but we're talking about a much larger body of work than only 3 seasons, though.
Right. Abramowitz played in an era of you can go pop these receivers like paper bags. I mean, there was no such thing as pass interference as long as the ball wasn't in the air, and you could crack back and you could do all those things to receivers.
And I think it's also worth noting that for 2 of those seasons, to further exemplify just exactly how talented Thomas has been, is the fact that traffic.
Is that what that was?
That was a motorcycle.
I got you.
I think that it's worth noting that the numbers that Thomas has put up, especially in the past 2 seasons, he's done so being practically the only receiving threat that the Saints had for much of the season. Outside of Kamara coming out of the backfield or Ingram coming out of the backfield, there was really not another.
I think last year that was true. I think in 2017, his sophomore season, he got more help from Ted Ginn Jr. and he got a little more help from Snead, Willie Snead. Willie Snead didn't have a great year like he had in 2016, but he had an okay year in 2017. Considering he was suspended, he kind of picked it up towards the end of the season. You kept waiting for him to have those, his impact performance, but he just never did. I think 2018 was probably the most remarkable season for Michael Thomas because there was really no other help. I mean, he was a one-man show, and no game better personified that than the Los Angeles Rams game.
Yeah,
I mean, Michael Thomas just destroyed Marcus Peters, and he was the only receiving threat, consistent threat out there.
Yeah, and I think that once you see the Saints develop that number 2 behind him, sure, it may take some of his stats away, but it's not going to be the marked difference that most people expect it to be.
I have this feeling that Thomas is one of those receivers that he could play with any team and put up these kind of numbers. It's great that he's playing with us doing this. And I think it's really not going to matter one way or another if there's another guy on the other side. Thomas is going to do what he can do. He makes the contested catches. He knows how to generate separation. He knows how to run these precise routes, and he knows how to get yards after the catch. So he's always going to be a threat. You're going to throw to him no matter what. And he is one of those guys, and the Saints have only had a very small handful of these kind of guys. That's the guy you can go to whenever you need a play. He's going to have a play for you. And that's why I would pay him whatever he asked for, because that's a security blanket. You know you can rely on that guy. It's not going to be one of those games where, okay, let's say you're playing the Patriots and Bill Belichick, what he likes to do, take away whatever you do well. We're going to take that away and make you beat us with something you don't do well. I don't think he could do that to Michael Thomas. I think he will get his yards no matter what kind of coverage you throw at him, because that's the kind of receiver he is. He's not the kind of guy you can take away in a game. Which, what was the old saying that Dan Patrick used to say? You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. Yeah. And that's Michael Thomas. I think Alvin Kamara is that kind of player too.
Yeah.
You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him.
Well, Kamara, I have mixed emotions on Kamara. Now, he's a dynamic player that has done incredible things in his first 2 seasons here. I don't ever want to see the Saints put him into a position where it's got to be Alvin Kamara or bust. I want to see him used in tandem the way that he has been with Mark Ingram. I think that's going to be the most effective that you're going to see the man play.
I agree with that. I mean, to the extent of less of Kamara is better for the long term of the season.
Yeah.
You want to have – we don't want a guy – fans like this, but you really don't want a guy who is going to touch the ball 330, 340 times a game, in a game, a season. That'd be a hell of a thing, a game.
That'd be a long game.
Yeah, that would be. No, 340 times in a season. You want to keep him below 300 carries, 300 touches. And if that means he catches 7 passes and runs 3 times in a particular game, so be it. But I like the thunder and lightning, the fire and ice, whatever you want to call that tandem of backs where you have an inside guy and an outside guy. And both can catch the ball, both can block, both can do a lot of things to make it look like you can run the same formations and multiple plays out of that same formation. It keeps defenses on their heels. But I do not want to get to the point where the defense just starts going after Kamara. That's what I don't like. I like the idea of a play action. Kamara kind of does a wheel right out of the backfield, or before the ball's even snapped, he comes out of the backfield and lines up as a receiver. I like those kind of things. And if he lines up as a receiver and the linebacker walks over to cover him, Breeze could either audible to a running play, an inside running play, if that middle linebacker is moved out of the box, or, if he likes the matchup with a linebacker on Kamara, he can go to Kamara in a passing game. I like that flexibility. I don't want to see that kind of thing where the defense just kind of rolls that coverage, or, they're all focused on Kamara, and then they double up Michael Thomas, and then we have some issues trying to make things work.
Yeah. I hate to see in a way, I hate to see the defense have to make the choice between focusing on Thomas or focusing on Kamara. We need another receiver to do that with, rather than have to have Kamara pull double duty that way. The league nowadays is so much different than it used to be. The season is so long and drawn out. These players take such a beating physically. I don't want to see Kamara have a 6 or 7 year career. I want to see him last a long time and have a great career. And the only way that he's going to be able to do that, unfortunately, is to pace himself or to be used sparingly.
That's why I said that the number has to be around 300 combined catches, and rushes. You can't have him rushing that ball for over 300 times. Then tack on another 50 to 75 catches. That's just too much. That's too many hits. Just think about the Atlanta game last year or 2 years ago. I'm sorry. Golly, it's probably been 2 years. But in 2017, when we played in Atlanta, and he was taken out with a concussion, how that offense had to adjust, and it took almost 3 quarters for them to figure out what plays they were going to run without Alvin Kamara in the game. And I don't want that, because I'm afraid the more you expose him, the more likely he will get hurt. And I'm too protective. And I think about the end of the season too much. We ran out of gas last year in those final 4 games. And I think a lot of that was because of Ingram not getting the suspension affecting him like it did Willie Snead. It took him a while to get going. Injuries started to happen on the offensive line. The lack of another receiver started to affect Michael Thomas. All those things came into play by the end of the season. They weren't rolling like they were against Cincinnati and against the Rams and against the Eagles at midway point of the season. And I want to see us enter the playoffs, and in the playoffs doing that kind of stuff. I want to see our offense rolling at that point.
It's going to have to. That's the only way that we're going to survive and move on.
Yeah.
I've heard the saying all my life. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And you can come out like gangbusters like the Saints did a year ago, and if you run out of gas at the end, all of a sudden those skull dragons that you put on display at the beginning of the season mean absolutely nothing. It's all about setting yourself up to advance in the postseason.
Yeah. At this point it is, because it's Super Bowl bust this year. I mean, we made it to the divisional round 2 years ago and lost. Made it to the NFC Championship game last year and lost. We have to get past that now. It took us a long time just to get past the divisional round. Now we have to get past that championship game, get into the Super Bowl. You're playing one game. You got 2 weeks to prepare. That's the game that Sean Payton lays it all out. We saw it in 2009. Ambush. I mean, who calls that? He does. You will see that kind of shoot from the hip, we're running everything, kind of game. And the only way we can do that is we've got to be playing our best football from the bye week on. We've got to be rolling at that point. The first 4 weeks are killer, but this coming season, we've got to get that hit. Once we hit that bye week, you get Rankins back, and you need to be playing lights out football into December. Kick ass at Thanksgiving, and in December, you're destroying people. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see us running out of gas.
Well, you look over the past several years, and the teams that did exactly what you were just talking about, they hit their stride as the season was ending, going into the playoffs. They're the ones that breezed through the playoffs, won the Super Bowl every time.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the only way it can work this year. And I don't know if we can get that number 1 seed again this year. I don't know if we can get that first round bye. But if we're rolling, playing our best football, that's a good way to get that, at least a bye. That's a good way to get in the playoffs and win. 2011, we were playing our best football going into the end of that season. We played very well against the Lions. It was 5 turnovers that put us behind the 8 ball, and then a defense that just could not stop the 49ers when they had to. But the offense came back and took the lead twice. So, and I think our defense this coming year is better than the 2011 defense. If we can get that kind of offensive production with this defense, I think we can do a hell of a lot better. I think we can get that 2-peat.
Well, there again, the most mileage that this team is going to get out of the offense is going to have to be using them sparingly, and that's going to all fall on the defense. They're going to have to step up, and they're going to have to be – and you saw glimpses of that last year during that late season stretch. The defense had to step up and take the game.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But there is the difference between last year and this year. What the other guys have to do. I did say Michael Thomas is one of these guys that you can try and stop him, but you can only hope to contain him. But if you get, Ted Ginn Jr. to come back and play better, even better than he played in 2017, if you can get Jared Cook to be no worse than 2015 Ben Watson, we're not even talking about Jimmy Graham. If he can be better than 2009 Jeremy Shockey, which shouldn't be too hard, but if he can be better than him, if you can get some kind of consistent production out of him, and a guy whose career has been marked by inconsistency, you can get consistent production out of him, that will help a lot. Ted Ginn Jr. stretching defenses with his speed will help a lot. And the young receivers growing up, Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, Cameron Meredith, those guys have to grow up. And then if you can get anything out of these undrafted free agents, all that will help out. And you also have to get, I want to see, the fans are going to freak out about this, but I'd like to see 3 running backs, in this offense, like you had in 2011 and 2009, where you have a Latavius Murray can do some inside running. You get one of these undrafted free agents, the kid from Nebraska, for example. Get him in there, and he can do some stuff. So it takes the pressure off of Alvin Kamara to be the every down back, to be that productive back. I would love for the fact that, here's Kamara and Murray beating up a team, going into the third quarter, and then we go to the kid from Nebraska with fresh legs. That defense is tired. And here comes its sledgehammer, just pounding that defense now. Because the Saints have built up a nice lead. Now it's time to run some clock. And we're going to run clock by beating the hell out of you with our running game, this fresh running back who's been chomping at the bit to come out here. That would be that to me is a successful formula, especially against a team like Atlanta, and especially against a team like the Rams or the Eagles, where you've got defenses, their offense is high scoring, but they can't hurt you if they're on the sideline because you're wearing that defense out. They cannot get off the field.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Similar to the Buffalo game, was it, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah. It doesn't have to be the Buffalo game. I'm thinking like the Giants game from 2009, the Patriots game to an extent from 2009, in 2011. Damn, I just lost. The Giants game in 2011. Those games, the Bengals game in 2011. No, I'm sorry, it was 2010. 2010. Where you wear a defense out by doing that. That's a successful formula, and I could go for that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as you alluded to, they made it priority 1 to extend
Michael Thomas. Oh, Cameron Jordan.
Cam Jordan.
Yep.
I knew it. Priority 2 was Michael Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have as number 3?
Number 3?
Or do you have a number 3 before training camp?
Before training camp this year? No.
Yes.
There is no number 3 before training camp this year. No, because Von Bell is a free agent after this season. He's in the final year of his contract. He was a second-round pick in 2016. He has a 3-year deal. His contract ends after this season. I'm sorry. He was a second-round pick. I'm kind of out of it a little bit here. I'm trying to think of all the picks that we had early. Rankins, you have to see how he comes back from his injury. And you picked up his option, so he's on a 5-year deal. Lattimore, you'll probably pick up his option. He's on a 5-year deal. So you don't have to worry about those two guys because they're first-rounders. What you want to see now is you want to see how far these younger guys can go. You've got that kid, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who we don't know where he fits in yet. Is he going to be your nickelback? Is he going to turn out to be your free safety, your strong safety? Where is he going to fit in on this defense? If he looks like the guy you want to use at your free safety spot, Marcus Williams may be in trouble. You may not be interested in keeping him much longer. If he turns out to be a sledgehammer and you really like him as strong, you may not want to bring back Von Bell. So, that's why I'm saying you're not really too concerned about Von Bell at this point. The only other guy you can think of who you might have to look at that was a draft pick is David Onyemata. But that's going to depend on how he plays this year and is he going to be suspended. As time goes forward, I'm feeling more and more confident that he will not be suspended this year.
I am too.
Because we knew about Ingram way back in March. At this point last year, we found out about Snead right before the season started. But Snead, the team knew about Snead before that. And you saw the way they were treating Snead in the preseason. A lot of people were saying, why is he playing in the third and fourth quarter of this game? Shouldn't you be resting him and playing the other guys? Well, no. They knew. They knew he was suspended. So, I don't know. That's how I look at it. The more silence comes from the league, the less likely it seems that they're going to suspend him. Yeah. And I probably just cursed him by doing that because he will get suspended. People are going to come back and go, see, you don't know what you're talking about.
What about Anzalone?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's got 2 years left in his deal. He was a 20. He came in the Lattimore.
Yeah.
So it's Williams, Lattimore,
Kamara,
and Hendrickson. I drew a blank on his name. Hendrickson. I think Anzalone is somebody you're just going to wait and see on. Let's see how he does this year. You have his rookie year. He got hurt. Last year, they moved him to the middle. He seemed to play a lot better in the middle. Let's see how he does this year, if he gets even better this year.
Well, as far as Marcus Williams goes, I think you and I both agree that after his rookie year, last year, he regressed quite a bit.
Absolutely.
And I would venture to say that if he regresses any more, that he's just going to be a cautionary tale for the Saints organization.
Well, that's why you brought in Chauncey Gardner-Williams.
Yeah.
Johnson, not Williams. Johnson. You brought him in because you're not totally satisfied with what Williams has been doing. His rookie year was great. He's got to play more like his rookie year than he did his sophomore year. And if he doesn't, that kid Gardner-Johnson may take his place. So that's why I said he's the wild card. When you took him, aside from him being probably the highest rated player on your board. You shot a shot across the bow of both Bell and Williams, saying that no one's job is safe. I thought Bell played better last year than he did his previous 2 years, and certainly better than Williams did. So if there's two players, of those two players, the one I'm more concerned about not coming back, it's Marcus Williams.
Sure.
He's got to play better this coming year, or that other kid's going to take his job, because I think that kid from Florida is going to be the steal of the draft, personally.
I hope you're right.
I like him more, and it's the nature of the position, but I like him more than anybody else in that draft class, even over the center. Although, again, it's the nature of the position. It's that as a center, they only notice you if you screw up. If you do, it's true. If you're an offensive lineman, think about it. If you're an offensive lineman, you do your great job. No one really notices, except they look back and, oh man, look at those holes this guy had to run through. But for the most part, they only pay attention when you screw up. Well, that's why Andrus Peat has such a bullseye on his back, because they know his name because of his screw-ups. That Philadelphia game was probably his worst game as a professional, and that's how people visualize him. That's his game. This is who Andrus Peat is. We don't pay attention to the Bengals game or the Rams game where he had good games. Who Andrus Peat is how he played in that Philadelphia playoff game. That's how everybody sees him. You cost us 2 touchdowns. You were holding all the time. You have one hand, but I don't want to hear that. But I mean, that's how people look at him.
That's really unfortunate, because all things considered, I would say that Pete is probably the most versatile player that we have on the offensive line.
He is, but he's got to play better too. He has to stop getting hurt. He got hurt. Of course, he broke his leg in the playoff game in January and was back playing for the Saints by September. But that being said, every year there's some sort of injury. And same with Teron Armstead. He has yet to play 16 games in a season in his entire career. But when he does play, he's probably the closest we've seen to Willie Roaf since Willie Roaf was around. He is just an unbelievable offensive lineman when he's healthy. But when he's not healthy, which seems to be a lot, that's when we see problems.
Yeah. I think that if word of mouth is any indication, the kid that we got from A&M at center, he's going to be, as you said, day one starter.
Yeah.
And losing Unger, that is going to be huge. The stability, as it has been for the past several years, the stability of this offensive line is going to begin with Teron Armstead and his health. Because when Armstead invariably goes down, that's when we got to start shifting bodies and relocating players to different positions, and that's just basically kind of on a wing and a prayer. And it's hard to have faith in that being a recipe for success.
I think that's why they went ahead and signed Nick Easton, because of that lack of depth. When Armstead went down, then you had to slide Pete over to tackle. When Bushrod went down, they're tired of you lost your rock, your ideal 6-man offensive lineman, the guard, Clemente. You lost him in free agency because he's looking for a starting job. So you didn't have that reliability where you could slide him at guard, move Pete over to tackle and not have any significant drop off. You thought you took care of that by getting Bushrod, so Bushrod could slide in, but then Pete started getting hurt. So then you really had some problems there. So I think that's why you brought in a guy like Eaton. I think that's why they are working on getting more experienced guys behind this offensive line, so you can absorb injuries better. So if you lose a guy, he can come in, the backup guy can come in, and you don't have the severe drop off that I think you saw towards the end, especially in that Dallas game, when you started losing your starters in that offensive line. I thought Unger showed his age. I really did. I said that as the season was unfolding, I started seeing Unger getting picked up and pushed back into Breeze, which I hadn't seen before. And some people were saying it was Pete's problem, that Unger was, trying to compensate for Pete's shortcoming. But I think Unger, and this is why he retired, Unger could see he wasn't playing at the level he was used to playing at. So, yeah, you lost something with Unger, but you may pick up a more physical center now as opposed to if you were going the season with Cameron Tom or Will Clapp. You picked up a more physical center now with McCoy. So I think the leadership and making the right calls consistently, you lose that with Unger, but I think you pick up a better physical center than you had in Unger last year.
Yeah. And the only I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, difference in the two is going to be the experience factor, which obviously he's going to get that. And there too, you're going to have a Teron Armstead. You're going to have a Andres Pete. You're going to have
Larry Warford
and Ramczyk on the other side. Not only to have your back, but also experienced leaders at your positions to help him to get to that experience level as well.
Well, it's funny. Here we're all worried about the left side, the center and left. We're worried about them, but Horford has missed a lot of the OTAs and the mini camps like that. But we're not even worried about that. We know he's going to be there come training camp. Sure. And Ramczyk, we don't even think about him. And you think about who used to be on that side. Two of the longest standing Saints in, at least for Peyton, in his tenure as head coach. You had Jari Evans, who was a guard from day one in 2006. He was your guard on the right side. And you had Streif, who was drafted in 2006. He takes over in 2010. 2010, 2011. I don't remember when Finchcombe retired. I think it was 2010 when he had to retire. But, you had Streif there for at least 5 to 7 years. You had Stitchcombe there for 4 years. You had stability on that side compared to your left side, where you went from Mar Nesbitt to Carl Nix to Ben Grubbs, and then eventually Pete. I mean, you had a couple other guys come in there and try and do it, but really Pete was the one that ended up taking that spot. Your left tackle has gone from Jamal Brown. Then we had Bushrod. Then you had, what was his name? Charlie Brown, who famously, Sean Payton, I've seen enough, and he would never start another game at left tackle. Then Teron Armstead, so you've had a lot of turnover on the left side. The right side had a lot more stability. So it's interesting. We don't even worry about that right side. In fact, I think the team is more right side heavy in the running game. I think they go to that right side a lot more than they go to the left side.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
So, I'm anxious to see just exactly what kind of depth we're going to have. And by that, I mean not just bodies. I want to see what kind of quality that we're going to have behind the starters, because 2 years ago in Minnesota, we were down to only taking, I think it was 7 offensive linemen to that playoff game
because of injuries.
Yeah. I mean, we were like 1 or 2 injuries away from Cam Jordan playing on the offensive line. I say that facetiously, but to make a point. But it was almost that. It was almost that critical.
Well, who becomes your third tackle? That's the first question we have to have. As far as depth, who's that third tackle going to be? Is it going to be Michael Ola? Is it going to be Andrus Peat? And they put Nick Easton as the starter. What happens there? We don't know.
I think that it's always going to be Peat first, unless there's something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Peat is just, for lack of a better way of putting it, he's going to be their go-to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how sound a strategy that is either, actually. Because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, don't I remember that Peat was drafted as a tackle, was he not?
Yes, he was.
And they started him in the preseason at tackle, mm-hmm. and rotated him in at guard.
They played him basically all over the offensive line. They played him at left tackle. They played him at right tackle. They played him at left guard. They've done even a little bit at right guard before they brought back Jari Evans. They tried him at right guard a couple of times. So he's been all over that offensive line.
That's the point I was trying to make earlier. Everybody bashes on Peat, but in a pinch, he can play every position on the offensive line except center.
Yeah.
So everybody's talking about, well, why don't we trade Peat? Well, why trade Peat? You can plug him into any hole that you have on the offensive line. He may not be Pro Bowl quality talent at that position, but he's going to get you from point A to point B.
Well, you've got your flexibility with him. It also means you don't have to keep as many offensive linemen as you may have to, because keep in mind, Sheldon Rankins will not be available that first month, and we don't know, depending if he's put on the PUP list or a callable IR, if he is going to be there before the bye week or after the bye week in week 9. I'm always assuming after the bye week in week 9 at the latest. But so, you're going to have to keep an extra defensive tackle or somebody who can play defensive tackle and end on your defensive line. So you may have to go thinner on your offensive line because you only have so many spots. The Saints have been hoarding defensive backs. We've seen this now with all these signings. I know the changes in the rules of special teams means you're going to have more defensive backs playing in special teams than you used to. So are we going to keep 10, 11, 12 defensive backs? I don't know how many we're going to keep. Because I'm counting safeties and corners. So, if you keep 10, you're talking about keeping 4 safeties and 6 cornerbacks now? We've done 5 and 5 in the past, but if you keep 6, okay, now how many linebackers do you keep? 6 linebackers. You want to keep at least 3 starters and probably 3 backups. We may only do 5. How many defensive linemen? I mean, I'm talking about just to get the 53, not the 45 on game day, just the 53. How many of those guys do you keep? So that affects how many offensive linemen we keep. We're assuming you're going to keep 6 receivers. How many running backs do you keep? You're keeping 1 fullback, so you got that spot. So let's say they keep 5 running backs and 6 receivers. How many tight ends do you keep? 3 or 4? Do you stick with Dan Arnold? What about your rookie that you drafted this year? Does he become your 4th tight end? Do you risk cutting him and putting him on the practice squad? Do you risk, cutting Dan Arnold and playing, keeping the rookie and probably deactivating him all season? What do you do? So that's your numbers. You have to try and figure out your numbers, how many players you're going to keep, because you got 3 quarterbacks. You're keeping 3 quarterbacks. Taysom Hill is your X factor. Taysom Hill plays your 7th wide receiver. He plays your 3rd tight end. He plays your 7th running back. I mean, he does a little bit of everything. He's
And
your kick returner.
We will find out that he's going to be the number 3 tackle.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm just saying. When we start looking at all this stuff, going, okay, well, who the backup? Where's our depth going to be? You have to start counting players now. Who goes where? In the past, we were able to go heavy elsewhere because we only had 2 quarterbacks. Well, you're not going to this year because you've already guaranteed Bridgewater's salary, so you're not cutting him. He's on a 1-year deal anyway, and we saw what Taysom Hill does for you, so you're not cutting him. So you got to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Unless.
Are you willing to trade? If you trade now,
No. Unless you keep Taysom Hill under a different designation, like a wide receiver.
But regardless, you're still keeping him in a spot.
Yeah.
You're not, I mean, whether you call him a quarterback or not, you're keeping him in a spot. You have a spot for him.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Where do you go thinner now if you want to go heavy? Because one of your kick returners is a cornerback. So we're already talking 10 or 11 cornerbacks. Okay? I'm not cornerbacks, they're defensive backs. So you're probably doing 7 cornerbacks because I doubt they go with 5. I think they're going to go closer to 7 with one guy being your kick returner. So, that's all the things that we have to look at when we start talking about final numbers on this team. People are worried about depth on the defensive line. You may not have the spots to really go very deep past 8.
Yeah.
Your 4 starters and your 4 backups. You may not have the spots to go 9 defensive linemen. And one of those 8 will probably, if you put Rankins on recallable IR or you put him on the PUP, he doesn't count towards your roster. But so there's a guy that's going to be on this team knowing he's only going to be in this team for about 8 weeks, unless he can do more than one thing.
Yeah.
And then when you bring back Rankins, what do? Do you cut that guy? Don't know. So that's all things we have to play with.
Real quick, I've gotten a message from Quinn, and he apologizes for not being able to make it tonight. We're gonna try and get him on next week instead.
Well, I know he was driving, and that was one of the issues we had.
But anyway, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I never did pay the bills.
No, you didn't. So why don't you go and do that right now?
Thank Fan First Productions for being our sponsor. Thank Two Dudes Studios for allowing me to shoot from here. We want to thank John Pinto for all the hard work that he does. We haven't thanked him in quite some time. Thank Joel Smith. Let me see, who else do I need to thank? Thank all of you for joining us and for continuing to join us every week. And I really appreciate you guys. You've helped me to get through a really trying time, and I love you guys.
I love you, man. That's a commercial we haven't seen in a long, long time. You know,
Yeah,
that's,
that was a that was a Budweiser commercial, wasn't it?
yes, it was Bud Light
No, Bud
commercial.
Light.
Bud Light commercial. Yeah, just like the other day I made reference to what's his name? Dennis. God, he was an Easy Rider. He was in
Hopper.
Dennis Hopper. I was doing bad things, man. Bad
Bad
things.
things.
And people, people are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, "Oh man, I forgot that commercial's like 20-something years old now." People, this is Bruce Smith's tennis shoe. That kind of. I remember that.
But thank everyone for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
And we invite you to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. And look forward to seeing you guys again next week. And with that, I throw it back to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Ulrich.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you guys for joining us as always. I
cannot forget to thank Jerry Poor. He has been with us, Jerry and Anna Millette. They have been with us since day one and have never wavered, and they are the model of consistency as far as I can ask for any better people to keep us inspired to keep doing what we do.
Absolutely. I appreciate anybody who sticks with us and can tolerate looking at me for 3 years. That's a special person. That's for damn sure.
You know what?
What?
We're coming up on our 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, because I just passed my 6-year anniversary at work, so that's
next
a good
month.
thing too. Yep, 3 years next month. We have to get Scott Alexander back on. He was on one of our first shows.
He was our very first guest.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get Scott back on again.
I did the show that night. From Chick-fil-A's parking lot, sitting in the passenger seat of my car.
That is true. I remember that. I do remember that because you were stealing that Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
absolutely. I do remember that. Fun times. Yeah, I was doing that in the front room of the house here in my main office. That's office/dining room, and I don't even have that desk anymore. I got rid of the desk and all that stuff. So
there's been so many changes.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we'll have to reminisce on another show.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I was going to say before you go smoke your meat, that didn't come out right. I'm sorry about that. One thing I did want to say is I've been doing. I've got a whole stack of Saints highlight films, and I'm kind of picking out the best of the worst or the best of the best. I will get to the Moore years. I have the entire Moore years on video, but I'm kind of picking it out and giving a little bit of Saints history during his dead time before training camp. I just did the 76 team or 75 team, the arrival of Hank Stram. Tomorrow I will do the departure of Hank Stram. And the reason why I skip over the 76 season, mainly because, you don't need to see every highlight. You kind of get the gist of it all. When a new coach comes in, it's very optimistic. The 77 highlight package, that will symbolize what the ones I've been skipping over really have been like. That one's called Someday Soon. It's like, I think the announcer even says, someday the Saints will become winners, and someday soon they'll find that winning season. That just summarizes what it was like to be a Saints fan in the 70s. But it's a good one. Dick Nolan was announced as head coach. He breaks down the flex defense. It's well worth watching. So anyway, that will be tomorrow's show, tomorrow's thing on Facebook. It'll be on the Under the Dome page, the New Orleans Saints page, all the different Saints pages I visit. I hope y'all enjoy it because when we get to the Bum Phillips ones, the Bum Phillips are pretty fun. And of course, Jim Moore and one y'all love. So anyway, thank you guys. once again for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.